Well, well, well. We are back again with the Battle Buddies. Today's topic is the gameplay loop, which took way longer than I was expecting, and it's not even close to finished, as you can tell by this perfectly beautiful title screen. Just to run through so you can see exactly what we'll be talking about, we have our amazing title screen, like I said, got 2 players made right now. In the first example, we will host, boom, and then we will host, boom. We're in the server. I forgot that the server name is not working anymore. Give me like 10 minutes to fix that. I'm so good. It didn't even take me 10 minutes. It took me like 2. I'm amazing. As we were saying, boom. This is our lobby room. Very beautiful rock texture. If we go ahead and join on this one, we can see that it is searching. It's very efficient, very fast at finding the one lobby that exists. And boom. I'm so good. Boom, you click on it, you join, it's great. It works, that's what matters. Almost got scared, I didn't realize I moved that far away, but yes, both players exist. I'm gonna make it a very interactive lobby, so you can actually play with your character already, customize it, whatnot, do whatever I need to, and then before you can start the game. There is a lot left to do with this still. The players that join should not be able to mess with any of these settings, so that's something that'll have to be disabled eventually. I also plan to actually make a physical UI, so instead of actually having to hit start here, you'll actually go to a location to interact with the starting game settings. We even have the player count, the title above here. Password hasn't been set up yet. Again, very minimal. We can at least hit the start game. There's only 2 levels and they're still being in progress. You click on the level, you transition, boom. You're in the level, countdown starts. It waits for all the players to be readied up before it starts the countdown, and then boom. We got a little timer at the bottom, we got our scores. It'll start you at 0, this is just kind of an example. And then after the end, it says game. Why the other person teleports or disappears, not really sure. I don't know if that's an actual thing or if that's just because I'm debugging. Blah, blah, blah. I totally missed it. There was a results screen. You could see the podiums. Let's just do it again because it is a fully working gameplay loop, so I don't have to stop the game to try something again. We'll have the client pick up some gems. Ooh, very exciting. And boom. Oh, I got hit right at the last second. Oh, snap. Ignore the fact that there's a 1 there. I had 10 when the game ended. And boom, boom, boom. 10 and 26. Perfect. Shows the results screen, takes you back to the main lobby, and boom. Rinse and repeat. It's great. How does this all work? How long did this take? I don't remember. A long time. This started with 5 things, and then I just kept adding more things that I needed to do, and some of them related, some of them not. So we're just gonna kind of run through and see if I remember exactly how this works to a certain degree, just so I can kind of show you just how much there is to something like this. This is not a tutorial. Do not use this. We'll start with some very core points, I guess. There's some main pieces here called the game mode, the game instance, the game state, and the player state. There's probably a few more that are kind of unique, but these are the main ones that I've been using. The way they work specifically, or for my purpose at least, the game mode is only on the server. The way this communicates to everyone is kind of funky, so clients cannot actually communicate to the server, but the game mode is basically the way of distributing information to everyone so that everyone is getting the same stuff at the same time. The game instance is something that is super important because it is kind of connected to how you actually join through Steam specifically. Create, join, destroy. That is all handled in the game instance. Game instance is also the main blueprint that you use to keep persisting data when you transition between levels, because typically when you transition from a level to another, it wipes everything. You start with a fresh player, basically, and that game instance saves information. Game state, that is stuff that handles most of the game-related aspect of the game. Wow. To be honest, I think most of this is still kind of related to the game mode, where the game mode has the server information so that everyone knows this is law. This is what am I holding? This is exactly what it needs to be. No one else can change that. But in order to distribute that information from game mode, I usually use game state to distribute that. And then player state is kind of the same as the game state, except it's more player oriented. So this is the actual visible widget update. So let's start with the menu, shall we? Starting at the menu graph, we have the host and join. This is where it splits off. So for the host graph, the main thing that we have, creating a session. So when we hit that host button, it grabs all that information, like what name we put in there. There's no name, doesn't actually create a server, and then it actually creates the session, which is again done on the Steam game instance, which we can see here. Grabs a server name, sets the match state to lobby. That way it knows what visuals to present, and then of course opens the lobby level. This stuff is pretty important. Could I explain why? Maybe with enough time. I'm not going to. I knew it when I needed to know it, and now I don't need to know it. So that is creating a session. As for the joining session, we will go back to the menu graph. So when you hit the join button, by default, I make it so it starts searching for sessions. That way you don't have to hit the button beforehand. You just hit join and it automatically starts searching. Onto the join graph. Here's that refresh button for you. So find session advanced. Once it's successful, it grabs all of those entries and creates a widget entry, sets the information for it, and then adds it to the scroll list. In my case, you only saw one version of the game, but like if you had multiple, then you'd see a list of people. And then of course, once it's done, it turns all the UI back on in case you decide you're like, oh, I'm done looking. I don't want to refresh anymore. From there, once you actually select the entry, it automatically sets the selected server list index here, checks to make sure you actually have one selected, and then just runs that simple join session. On success, it grabs the server settings, makes sure that's all visually correct. You don't actually have to travel to the map since it's joining the session. That kind of does it for you. But yeah, that is the menu part done. Great. Moving on to the lobby, when you actually hit that start button, that's when the server essentially closes up. It makes sure it knows how many players are expected, and then makes it so you know more people can join. If you go back, then it sets it back to being open and you can have more people join again. For the actual level 1 that I have set up right now, it actually travels you to the match state. So right now it says for stage, sets the match state to match. That way it knows that, hey, we're about to start. This is where it gets a little complicated because this is where game mode comes in and it checks when people have joined. This even includes the first player that is like the server person, I guess. And what this does is it checks to see how many controllers exist, gets the player count, and whenever this player count updates, it immediately notifies the game state to be like, hey, we're in the lobby, make sure that lobby info is correct. Because if you join and it doesn't update, then it's not going to set that stuff to anything different than what you see here. It won't set the server name, it won't set the player count, it won't tell you what the password is. So that is the first way the game mode comes in handy, is that every time a new player joins, it makes sure to update the UI for everyone to be like, hey, new players joined, update that count, make sure the server name's still correct, make sure everything's great. I think that's pretty similar to this match state part thing here as well. What this match state does is it checks to see what UI you need to be using, as of right now at least. Once it knows what match state you're in, it will update it to either be the menu screen, the gaming UI with the countdown and everything, or the lobby screen. The last main aspect is the UI, which is the actual match gameplay state. By default, it starts off with the waiting on players part here. When the UI part of this has been called, it runs this update match time, giving the player, each individual player, the time span that it currently is. I believe the time span by default is technically like 4 minutes and 4 seconds, so that the actual countdown can start playing. Runs the initial countdown aspect. Once that has hit 0, that's when it actually gets the time span and starts running the countdown. Once that has hit 0, that's when it displays the finish. All of the UI aspect of this is in the UI. The actual parts where it like saves score, disables the player, all of that is done through the game mode, the game state, and the player state. We check players. We make sure that the expected players from the beginning that when we close the lobby matches how many people are actually in. Once that is the case, we check to see if it's match or lobby. As long as it's a match, we then run this timer. If we go to update match time, we can see that this is grabbing from the game state, getting the time remaining, subtracting that, and then updating it. These notifies, again, whenever this variable changes, it immediately updates that to everyone. So it's like, oh, this is 5 seconds, boom, now it's 4. Everyone, it's 4. So every time a second passes, we update the match time, which is what's calling that UI, as we were talking about at the beginning there. That's where that connects. Afterwards, we turn on the player's movement, and this little extra bit here is a little bit more complicated because this is what displays the score about the player, and that needs to be not only seen by each individual owning player, but it also needs to be seen by other players playing. In the movement case, only the player that's actually using that character needs to know that, but with the score, we want everyone to see that, so we have to go a little bit further where we run a server call, and then again use that rep notify to make sure everyone sees it. Finishing up with that end game part. So we end the game, we save the scores. Since we need to save that information when we go back to the lobby so that we know who scores what and if we're actually seeing as a result screen, we set the result screen in-game instance to true, and then we get the player array for every player that exists and use that for loop to get every individual player state and save their score to a list. So yeah, that's the save score part of it. And then yeah, set the lobby state or the match state to lobby, set the level to lobby, and boom. Game is finished. We have entered the lobby. Let's go back. So here we are back at the lobby. There is another room over to the right. Again, I don't know if this is the best way to do this. Very bare bones right now, at least though. And back to the game mode again. People are joining. We are getting that player count again. We check the players. It is lobby. It is the result screen. Let's set that podium info. Grab that game instance for each player's score. Run a for loop for each player. And for every player that exists, we add a podium. This part doesn't need that notify stuff that you were seeing where I set a variable and it updates to everyone, because this is replicating by default. So when this spawns in, it immediately spawns in for everyone else as well, which includes these variables that are replicated to it as well. After that's done, once all the podiums are spawned, it then actually spawns the cutscene blueprint here. And pretty much all that does is as soon as it exists, it starts the cutscene. Make sure that we know whether it's watching or not. We set the camera for each player onto the cutscene, which is literally just a camera blueprint basically. And then sets a timer for 5 seconds as of right now to be able to watch that result screen. Once that is up, we finish the cutscene, we give the player their camera back, let them move, delete any of the podiums, and delete the camera cutscene. Finally, with all of that, I think that is kind of the general gist of how that all works. Once the result screen is finished, you still have the UI for the lobby pulled up. When you're watching that cutscene, it's grabbing that camera, which doesn't actually have the UI, so I don't have to do any extra shenanigans there. There is a lot more under the hood than this, I believe. It took forever just to even actually like have 2 players travel between maps, because again, as I was showing you with that like dual check and the listen thing, there's a lot of really specific parts of that, and I wasn't even sure I could actually test this in editor without like testing a real world example. I did find a way of getting that working. Here's another thing that I don't know is the best way of performing. It's that match state that you kept seeing. That is an enum that I made. Of course, it does get a bit messy. That's kind of the reason this is here, is because the game mode technically needs to always know what the match state is, but because you traveled between maps, it does not remember that, so I have to store it in the game instance as well as pull it up in the game mode for ease of access, I suppose. Which is a bit messy. I don't know if I like that, but it is understandable for me, at least for right now, and it seems to work pretty efficiently, so. Yeah, I forgot. There was some pretty stupid ways I was like getting information. The way I have it now might still look a little messy, but you did not see it before when I was still figuring it out. I'd love to revisit and try to get rid of those single tick delays entirely, but the fact that it's at least working very consistent with them, I'm probably gonna call it there. I think my next goals are to focus more on the traps and enemies again here, so I can get more of the gameplay actually fleshed out, because it's definitely going to heavily change how the level layouts are. But yeah, the main focuses are going to be these blue squares and again the enemies. The blue squares are going to be those interactables that you can pick up and throw, or some sort of interaction that you can directly damage players. In the original Spirit Tracks game, it is bombs. I don't know if I want to do bombs exactly. I'm still kind of figuring that out. That's going to be the next thing I experiment with, because I like the versatility and the dynamic the bombs provide in the original game, where it acts as like a direct form of damage to players, but it also kind of creates a barrier that they can't really walk around or walk through anymore. So it requires them to change the way they move around. And I think it's going to be important to try to keep some part of that aspect, because I think that's what makes the original game so fun. A lot of this is subject to change though. I just want to get something working, and then I feel like it's going to be a lot easier to tweak things from there. Even just the rolling part of this alone has been really fun, and the bear is actually kind of scary sometimes for me. You'll be rounding a corner and then suddenly you'll just be there, so I think so far things are going pretty well in the right direction. Stay tuned, I will keep working on this and let you guys know when the next major milestone has completed. Bye!